transmigrated as a dying orphan sold for 30 silver taels. On the day the celestial being came to guide me, my vicious aunt clung to my leg, wailing that she couldn't bear to let me go. It wasn't until my wedding night, when she climbed into my Tao partner's bed, that I realized it was all a conspiracy. Reborn into another life, I crushed the sound transmission jade slip, revealing my spiritual bones tainted with demonic chi. If the path of immortality cannot tolerate an ordinary bone, then I will trample the Azure Mystery sect to dust. I was nearly frozen stiff. On a snowy, howling New Year's Eve, I wore only a thin, tattered jacket. Shivering, I knocked on the courtyard gate of my second uncle's house. Bang, bang, bang. Inside, laughter echoed, warmth seeping through. I looked down at my numb feet, still in straw sandals, raised my hands to my mouth, and breathed a puff of warm air. "Who is it?" "Second uncle, it's me, Taiping." The gate cracked open, and second uncle poked his head out. I said a little sheepishly, "Our charcoal burned out. I was thinking I could borrow a few caddies from uncle. When spring comes, and I can go up the mountain and chop firewood, I'll definitely repay you." "How much could a few caddies of charcoal be worth?" "Wait here. Uncle will get it for you right away." Second uncle agreed readily, and my heart warmed, but before long, second aunt followed out. Her eyes fell on the basket in my arms. Besides a few pounds of charcoal, second uncle had secretly added 4 steaming white flour buns. Those white flour buns were saved for little Tiger. You can't even bear to eat them yourself, but now you're so generous. Second aunt shot a sharp glare at second uncle and grabbed 2 of the buns. Just then, her pudgy son ran out shouting for roast goose. Second aunt coaxed him, casually tossing those 2 white flour buns into the dog cage. I watched as a Huang gnawed on the white flour buns meant for Grandpa and me. Biting my lip, I said, "Thank you, second uncle. I'm going now." The charcoal was enough, and 2 buns were enough. Grandpa would definitely get better. Hunching my shoulders, I hugged the basket tight and walked unevenly toward the small earthen house at the east end of the village, where a faint light glimmered. That was Grandpa's and my home. The room was as cold as outside, filled with the smell of herbs. On the bed, my grandfather, who was nothing but skin and bones, finally showed a glimmer of light in his dull eyes when he saw me. "Grandfather, Uncle borrowed some charcoal and also got 2 white flour buns. Let's roast them and eat," I said with a smile as I lit the stove, and my grandfather patted my head. Suddenly he asked me, "Taiping, have you ever heard of immortals?" "Yes, Uncle Zhao at the village entrance said there are immortals on Cloud Lu Mountain. A few years ago, the snake demon in Qingshui town was slain by an immortal who came down from the mountain." "Then do you want to be like an immortal, live forever, and fly through the sky?" "Of course I do, but Uncle Zhao said you have to be born with spiritual bones." As I said this, I felt a little disappointed. People with ordinary bones cannot cultivate immortality. That's an iron rule. Grandfather was silent for a while, then looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, dead serious. "Taiping, if there were a chance for you to obtain an immortal registry, but you had to risk your life, would you be willing?" I was stunned for a moment. If I became an immortal, I could cure grandfather's illness, right? "Grandpa, I'm willing." "Why?" "But that could mean death. If I become an immortal, I can help cure your illness." I said it as if it were the most natural thing. Grandpa was stunned. Then he smiled, his eyes reddening. He reached under his pillow and pulled out a worn wooden box, handing it to me. I opened it and saw a vermilion wax pill and an ordinary soybean seed. The wax pill is called the spirit bone pill. After taking it, it can transform mortal bones into spirit bones, and your name will appear in the immortal register. My eyes widened. Such a miraculous elixir actually exists in this world. "Then why don't you take it, Grandpa?" "This pill only works for children aged 9 to 11, and the effects last only half a year. Within 6 months, you must reach the chi transformation stage. Otherwise, if your mortal bones are exposed, at best you'll be expelled from the sect. At worst, your soul and memories will be erased, turning you into a simpleton." My heart tightened, but I quickly steeled myself. "Grandpa, I still want to try." Grandpa peeled off the wax coating with his own hands and brought the pill to my lips. I swallowed it in one gulp and felt a warm current flow through my body. Apart from that, there wasn't much difference. "In a few days, an immortal will come to take you away." Grandfather finished speaking and then pointed at the soybean seed. "This was also left by that Taoist. He said that if you ever enter the immortal sect, you should plant this bean in the spiritual soil of the mountains. Then you will receive a great opportunity. I carefully put away that bean. It was the last keepsake grandfather left for me. Taiping, you must strive for honor. Strive for honor for all the mortal bones under heaven. Grandfather suddenly used all his strength to grab my shoulders and hoarsely shouted these words. Then his body stiffened and fell heavily onto the bed. Grandfather, my hand tremblingly reached under his nose. Nobody's. I stood there stunned. Tears kept swirling in my eyes, and finally I burst out crying. That night, grandfather passed away. That night, a new name appeared on the spirit bone stele of Qingxian Gate on Yunlu Mountain. Su Taiping, on the 7th day after grandfather's death. My aunt sold me off to the Bai family as a book boy for 30 silver taels. I didn't resist. With grandpa gone, there was nothing left in this home worth clinging to. But just as I was about to get on the carriage at the village entrance, a huge white crane suddenly flew down from the sky, with 2 people standing on its back, a man and a woman. The man had sword-like brows and starry eyes, while the woman was ethereally beautiful. Excuse us. We are disciples of the Green Mist sect on Cloud Ridge Mountain, sent down the mountain today to seek a young boy. May we ask if there's a Su Taiping in the village? The villagers pointed at me in unison. My uncle's face turned pale with terror, thinking I had committed some offense to bring immortals down the mountain to capture me. The woman in red robes let out a chuckle. We are here to take him up the mountain for cultivation. Cultivation? My uncle stood frozen. My Sioux family is going to produce an immortal. My aunt's eyes darted, and she grabbed my arm tightly, putting on a fawning smile. 2 immortals. Taiping is the pillar of our Sioux household. You can't just take him away like that. I smirked coldly inside. Pillar of the household? The white flower bun she threw into the dog cage that was bought with the charcoal money the supposed pillar, begged for. Even more ridiculous was the steward of the Bai family, who rushed over brandishing that deed of sale, shouting, "This Su Taiping has already been sold to our Bai family for 30 taels. It's written in black and white." The young man in blue robes took the deed, glanced at it, and a cold smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. A disciple of the Qingxian sect is worth only a mere 30 taels? He pulled a pouch of gold ingots from his sleeve and casually tossed it to the Bai steward. Is this enough? The steward opened it, and his eyes nearly popped out. Enough, enough. This gold. It could easily be exchanged for 3,000 taels of silver. Second aunt's face turned deathly pale. She lunged forward to snatch it, but the immortal brushed her aside with a single sweep of her sleeve. Second uncle tried to pull me back. Taiping, quick, tell the immortal that those 3,000 taels belong to us. I stepped back and watched coldly as they scrambled on the ground, brawling with the Bai steward. Taiping, your mortal ties are severed. Are you willing to come with us to Cloud Cottage and seek the path of immortality together? The young man in blue tore up the deed and extended his hand to me. I looked at the 2 immortals before me, then at the so-called family on the ground who had sold me for 30 taels and now wanted to snatch me back for 3,000. The last shred of hesitation in my heart vanished like smoke. I am willing. The crane soared through the sea of clouds. The sharp wind rushed against us. Senior sister Linglong tightly held my hand and said, "Don't be afraid. This is the barrier wind of the mountain protecting formation. It will pass soon." Sure enough, in the blink of an eye, the view suddenly opened up. Endless peaks, towering mountains that pierced the clouds, and floating peaks suspended in the sea of clouds. This was the true Cloud Lodge, Immortal Mountain. On the way, we met senior sister Xian from the 6th peak. She had also picked a disciple chosen by the spirit bone stele, a little girl named Lin Biu, delicate as a porcelain doll. We headed together to the Dragon Gate Hall to test the grade of our spirit bones. Along the way, senior sister Linglong explained to me, spirit bones in the world are divided into 4 grades: heavenly spirit bone, golden spirit bone, mystic spirit bone, and white spirit bone. White spirit bone is the lowest, also called false spirit bone. Cultivation speed is extremely slow. But don't worry, disciples chosen by the spirit bone stele are at least golden spirit bone. My heart skipped a beat. I'd only gotten onto the spirit bone stele by taking a pill. The truth was I had nothing but mortal bones. Inside the Dragon Gate Hall, Elder Black Dragon sat upright, his towering form like a small mountain, a dragon's head atop a human body, both majestic and ferocious. The little prince of Tianlang Kingdom, Yi Xian, stepped forward first. His hand pressed against the dragon orb. In an instant, golden light blazed, flames surged. A fire element, golden spirit bone. Jin Haji of the first peak burst into loud laughter. Lin Buyu stepped forward second. The dragon orb lit up again, but this time with crackling lightning, a thunder mutant bone, a golden spirit bone grade thunder mutant bone. Even senior sister Xian couldn't help but gasp in surprise. One thunder, one fire, both golden spirit bones. Our Qingxian sect has hope for revival. Elder Black Dragon laughed heartily. Finally, it was my turn. I took a deep breath and pressed my hand onto the dragon orb. Warm, spiritual energy enveloped my entire body. The dragon orb began to tremble. I opened my eyes. The once transparent orb had now turned a ghastly white, like discarded, withered bones by the roadside. A white spirit bone. Linglong's voice carried disbelief. The hall fell silent for a moment. Then Jin Haji of the first peak's laughter rang out. The spirit bone tablet actually picked out a white spirit bone. Your luck from the 7th peak is as bad as ever. Your senior sister Linglong wanted to argue, but senior brother Qing Xiao stopped her. Elder Black Dragon, could we test once more? Qing Xiao, this old man's pearl does not make mistakes. Elder Black Dragon withdrew the dragon pearl. His gaze fell on me. Bai Linggu is not qualified to become a disciple of the 7 peaks. You have 2 choices. Stay at the foot of the mountain as an outer sect registered disciple for 3 years, and then pass the 7 peaks selection trial after those 3 years, or immediately descend the mountain and return to the mortal world. Which do you choose? I glanced at senior brother Qing Xiao and senior sister Linglong. Senior sister Linglong's eyes were full of pity, while senior brother Qing Xiao looked guilty. If I pass the selection trial, can I still enter the 7th peak? Yes. On behalf of our master, I assure you of that. Senior brother Qing Xiao spoke resolutely. I turned to look at Elder Black Dragon. Elder, I choose to stay. Then, under the gaze of the crowd, Su Taiping pressed his hand onto the dragon orb in Elder Black Dragon's hand, closed his eyes, and began to concentrate. Feeling a warm power slowly enveloping him. Before long, he sensed a tremor from the dragon orb in his hand. Su Taiping opened his eyes and saw that the originally transparent dragon orb had turned a deathly white, like the color of abandoned beast bones on the roadside. Indeed, Su Taiping muttered to himself. His guess was correct. The elixir his grandfather had left him could get his name on the celestial registry, but it couldn't grant him a true spiritual bone. White bones. Staring at the bone-white dragon orb, senior sister Zhao Linglong's eyes were filled with disbelief. Qing Xiao beside her said nothing, but his expression showed no less surprise than Zhao Linglong's. The spirit bone steel actually picked out a skeleton. The luck of your 7 peaks is as bad as ever. Jin Haji from the first peak, upon seeing this, suddenly laughed out loud again, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Upon hearing this, junior sister Zhao Linglong was about to argue, but was stopped by Qing Xiao at her side. Elder Black Dragon, could I trouble you to test once more? Qing Xiao requested of Elder Black Dragon. Qing Xiao, you should all be well aware that this old man's orb never makes mistakes. Elder Black Dragon withdrew his dragon orb and said with an air of authority. Alas, Qing Xiao sighed deeply upon hearing this. Xian, Hiji, you two take the little child up the mountain. Your business here is done. Elder Black Dragon looked up at Xian and Jin Haji. Elder Black Dragon, junior brother Qing Xiao, junior sister Linglong, I take my leave. Jin Haji smiled, took Yi Xian beside him by the hand, and turned to leave. Senior brother Jin, surely the Azure Mystery sect wouldn't even take a skeleton? Our first peak would never accept such a waste anyway. Their conversation came from the doorway, leaving Qing Xiao and Linglong furious but helpless. Xian knew they were in a bad mood, so she said nothing and, taking Lin Biyu, took her leave. Only after they had left did Elder Black Dragon open his eyes again. A mere skeleton has no right to become a disciple of the 7 peaks. You can either stay at the foot of the mountain as an unregistered disciple, train for 3 years, and challenge the 7 peak selection, or leave the mountain immediately. He turned his gaze toward Su Taiping, who stood silently without saying a word. Clearly, this was meant for Su Taiping to make a choice. Taiping, let him decide for himself. Linglong beside him seemed to want to remind Su Taiping of something, but was interrupted by Elder Black Dragon. Upon hearing this, Linglong wisely shut her mouth and said no more. If I can pass the 7-peak selection, can I still join the 7th peak and become her junior brother, Sister Linglong, and Brother Qing Xiao? Instead of answering Elder Black Dragon immediately, Su Taiping turned back to look at Qing Xiao and Linglong. I can guarantee this to you on behalf of Master. If you pass the selection, the gates of the 7th peak will surely open for you, Qing Xiao said with a serious expression. He actually felt a bit guilty for not being able to bring Su Taiping up the mountain. It would be great if Taiping could pass the selection, but it's too difficult. Linglong shook her head at Su Taiping with a worried look. Su Taiping smiled at Linglong, then turned to the Black Dragon Elder and said, Elder, I wish to stay below the mountain to train for 3 years. Su Taiping would not break the promise he made to his grandfather. Seeing Su Taiping's decision, the Black Dragon Elder nodded calmly, then took out another jade slip and handed it to him, saying, Take this jade slip, someone will lead you down the mountain and inform you of the matters you need to attend to. Thank you, Elder. Su Taiping accepted the jade slip. Black Dragon Elder, this child was brought up the mountain by me, allow me to lead him down and settle him in. Linglong stepped forward and made her request to the Black Dragon Elder. Disciples of the 7 peaks are not permitted to descend the mountain at will or interfere with affairs below, but since this child was guided here by you, I will make an exception this once. The Black Dragon Elder pondered briefly, then slowly nodded in silent approval. Thank you, Black Dragon Elder. Having received permission, Linglong could hardly contain her joy. You may not stay below the peak for more than 2 hours. Also, don't try anything tricky. I have no say in matters above the 7 peaks, but when it comes to the area below, not even a blade of grass or a tree can escape my notice. The Black Dragon Elder warned Zhao Linglong. Don't worry, Elder, I promise I won't do anything unnecessary. Linglong, caught off guard by the Black Dragon Elder's insight, stuck out her tongue before smiling and assuring him. A moment later, in front of the Dragon Gate Hall. Junior sister, I need to report matters here to Master. Taiping is in your hands, you must arrange everything well for him. After all, it'll be hard for us to come down the mountain to find him in the future. Qing Xiao instructed Linglong. Don't worry, senior brother, I'll handle it properly. Linglong assured Qing Xiao. Qing Xiao nodded, then leaped into the air, stepping on a jade flute as his figure shot out like a streak of light, breaking through the sky. Let's go, Taiping. First, we'll register you, then find a good spot down the mountain where you can earn merit and cultivate at the same time. Linglong patted Taiping on the shoulder with a smile. Earn merit? Su Taiping was confused by the term. That's right. Linglong sighed, then explained to Su Taiping. Outer disciples under the Qingxian sect must earn merit points every year. Only by accumulating enough merit can they remain in the sect, otherwise they will be expelled from the mountain. Then how does one earn merit? Su Taiping continued to ask. Each outer disciple, after registration, is granted a courtyard house and a few acres of immortal farmland or herb garden. In the courtyard, one can raise cattle and pigs. In the immortal fields, one can plant immortal grains, rice, or herbs. When they mature, you can sell them to earn merit money. Linglong explained to Su Taiping in great detail. Thank you, Sister Linglong. I understand now this merit is just like silver in the mortal world. Su Taiping nodded upon hearing this. You could say that. Linglong smiled, then took Su Taiping's hand and said, Let's go, Taiping. We'll first go to the West Wind Pavilion to register, and then we'll see if there's something suitable for you to do. West Wind Pavilion of Cloud Cottage Mountain. This is one of the places in the Qingxian sect responsible for handling outer disciple affairs. Immortal Linglong, this young brother's registration has been handled. This bronze mirror and this cultivation jade slip, please take them. Inside the West Wind Pavilion, an old man with graying hair handed a wooden box containing a bronze mirror and a jade slip made of white jade to Linglong, who stood before him. Taiping, keep this bronze mirror safe. It serves both as proof of your status as an outer disciple and as a tool for listening to the elder's teachings in the future. Linglong first handed the bronze mirror and jade slip into Taiping's hands. That's right. Outer disciples cannot receive personal guidance from masters like inner disciples. They can only observe the sect elders' lectures on scriptures through this bronze mirror on the 1st and 15th of each month. The old man from the West Wind Pavilion added with a smile. And what about this jade slip? Su Taiping nodded, then picked up the jade slip and asked. This is a skill transfer jade slip containing a qi refining technique. To use it, simply calm your mind, concentrate, and press it against your forehead. It was still the old man who was speaking. Yes, the usage of the bronze mirror and some rules to observe after joining the sect are all explained in detail in the jade slip. Once you settle down, you can use it. Linglong added at this moment. Okay, Su Taiping note that. Pavilion Master Lu, do you have any gardens that still need a caretaker? Linglong turned her gaze toward the master of the West Wind Pavilion. The master of the Willow Pavilion's expression stiffened. Without a doubt, the easiest place to earn merit points in the outer sect was the Spirit Medicine Garden light work and plenty of merit. Master Willow, this child is a distant relative of mine. If you can help with this matter, consider it a personal favor from me, Zhao Linglong of the Seventh Peak. Zhao Linglong said very seriously. Hearing this, the master of the Willow Pavilion's eyes suddenly lit up. He knew Zhao Linglong's status a direct disciple of the Seventh Peak Master. With boundless future prospect, her personal favor was worth a great deal. Since Fairy Linglong has spoken, I naturally must assist. The master of the Willow Pavilion pondered briefly, then nodded. Hearing this, Zhao Linglong immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Su Taiping cast a grateful glance at Zhao Linglong, silently keeping this kindness in his heart. To be honest with you, Fairy, there is indeed an unattended medicinal garden among the western mountains of Cloud Hut Mountain under the jurisdiction of our West Wind Pavilion. That Pavilion Master Lu said while pointing to a map on the wall, then stroked his beard and added, the place is called Qingzhou Residence in Yunqi Valley, 3,000 li from Shifeng Pavilion. Aside from a 3-acre spirit garden, there is also a ready-made small courtyard where you can live and cultivate. Half an hour later, at the entrance of Shifeng Pavilion, Pavilion Master, didn't a cultivator report earlier that evil spirits were haunting Qingzhou residents? If you send that little fellow there and something happens, we won't be able to explain it to Fairy Linglong. Watching Fairy Linglong and Su Taiping ride away on a celestial crane, a steward of Shifeng Pavilion looked worriedly at the old Pavilion Master beside him. It's just baseless rumors. A few days ago, several disciples from the Four Peaks went to investigate and found nothing unusual. Pavilion Master Lu shook his head dismissively. Besides, even if something does go wrong, it's just an outer sect disciple. If he dies, he dies. Of the newly enrolled outer sect registered disciples each year, it's a good thing if half survive. If I had to be responsible for every death, how could I continue as Pavilion Master? He then gave the steward a sidelong glance. What the Pavilion Master says is right. I was overthinking. The steward withdrew with a disgruntled expression. After another half an hour, Green Bamboo Residence. Immortal Linglong, we have arrived at Green Bamboo Residence. The human-speaking crane lightly shook its wings, allowing Linglong and Su Taiping to land steadily on the ground. After steadying himself, Su Taiping looked ahead. He saw a small courtyard with mud walls nestled quietly within a lush green bamboo grove, the scattered bamboo leaves nearly burying the threshold. Little Taiping, from now on you must rely on yourself. Linglong glanced at the sky, then said to Su Taiping with some reluctance, the time appointed with Elder Black Dragon has arrived. Thank you, Sister Linglong. I will train hard and strive to reach the 7th peak as soon as possible. On Su Taiping's childish face appeared a determined expression that belied his age. Linglong raised her hand, smiled, and patted Su Taiping's cheek. Then she took a bone flute and a money pouch from her sleeve and handed them to him, saying, this bone whistle can be used to attract nearby spirit birds. In the pouch are 30 merit coins given by the West Wind Pavilion to each new disciple. If you have an urgent need, you can spend 1 merit coin to have a nearby spirit bird take you to buy it. But don't use these 30 merit coins recklessly unless absolutely necessary, because if nothing unexpected happens, the herb garden in your backyard should be overgrown. You need to use this money to buy seeds and food. I won't misuse them, Sister Linglong. Su Taiping nodded and took the bone whistle and the pouch. Little Taiping, fate willing, we'll meet again. Take care. Linglong, who had already mounted the crane again, smiled and waved at Su Taiping. Goodbye, Sister Linglong. Su Taiping also waved at Linglong. Whoosh! As the words fell, The crane flapped its wings, stirring up a gust of wind, and soared into the sky. Little Tai Ping, I hope we can meet again. Perched on the crane, Linglong gazed at the figure growing smaller below and let out a long, gentle sigh. Having grown up at the Azure Mystic sect, she knew very well that among the outer disciples with only white spirit bones, fewer than 1 in 1,000 would eventually be accepted into one of the 7 peaks most failed the selection within the 3-year deadline. Creak. As soon as Linglong left, Su Taiping pushed open the courtyard gate and strode inside, not stopping until he reached the herb garden in the back courtyard. Just as Sister Linglong had said, this herb garden was indeed abandoned. Staring at the weed-choked, desolate herb garden before him, Su Taiping muttered under his breath. But he and T rushed to the herb garden just to confirm that. Su Taiping carefully took out a wooden box from his bosom, then removed a small porcelain bottle from it, and finally poured out the soybean seed from the bottle. Yes, this was precisely the soybean seed his grandfather had left for him. Grandfather had said that once he reached the immortal mountain and planted this seed, he would gain another great fortune. Muttering to himself, he crouched down, dug a hole in the soil of the herb garden with his hands, and then planted the soybean seed. Since that pill was real, this seed must be real too. As Su Taiping said this, he scooped up some more soil with his little hands and carefully buried the soybean seed. Should I water it a bit? Patter. Just as Su Taiping was about to fetch water, the clod of earth he had used to cover the soybean seed was suddenly pushed aside by something. Huh? Sprouting? So fast. Curious, he crouched down, only to be stunned the soybean he had just planted had already sprouted tender shoots. Not only that, after breaking through the soil, the sprout grew stems and leaves at a visible pace, then blossomed and bore fruit. In just a moment, a fully mature soybean plant appeared right in front of Su Taiping. The plant was about 4 feet tall, with emerald green leaves that seemed to drip with moisture, and the 3 pods hanging from it were as translucent as jade. Anyone could tell they were no ordinary things. Could Grandpa's so-called opportunity be the beans inside these 3 pods? Su Taiping was very surprised and reached out to pick the 3 bean pods. Little one, just as Su Taiping reached for the 3 bean pods, a very pleasant voice suddenly sounded from the beanstalk before him. Immediately after, Su Taiping saw a milky white glow, like mist, emerge from the stems and leaves of the beanstalk, eventually coalescing into the figure of a stunning fairy before him. Don't rush to pick them, the fairy said with a sweet smile, looking at the stunned Su Taiping. Are you a demon or an immortal? Having finally come to his senses, Su Taiping tried hard to calm himself down, but his voice was still stammering. An immortal? Maybe once, but now I'm just a lingering soul parasitizing this being, barely surviving. The woman thought for a moment, then smiled bitterly. Little one, don't be afraid. I won't harm you, nor can I. I only appear now because I want to make a deal with you. She then said to Su Taiping. A deal? Su Taiping asked with some confusion. Trade? Su Taiping was somewhat puzzled. My real name is Chu Linghua. 600 years ago, I was ambushed by enemies. My physical body was sealed, my soul shattered, leaving only this wisp of residual soul. Relying on this being, I managed to escape. Later, this being traveled tens of thousands of miles and fell into your grandfather's hands. In the end, your grandfather passed it on to you. Until today, when you planted it in this spiritual land and allowed the being to be reborn, only then could I see the light of day again. The stunningly beautiful woman spoke sincerely to Su Taiping. If I hadn't made it up the mountain, fairy, would you have been stuck in that being forever? Su Taiping asked curiously. Although he was mature for his age, he was still a boy of about 10 or so, and his curiosity far outweighed his fear. Yes, and it wasn't just being stuck in a being. In another year or two, when the spiritual energy in the being is completely exhausted, this wisp of my soul would likely dissipate as well. Chu Linghua nodded, not hiding anything from Su Taiping. Then, fairy, what is this deal you mentioned just now? Su Taiping did not let his curiosity distract him from the key point of the question. On this beanstalk, there are 3 pods. Could you take only one and leave the remaining 2 to me? Chu Linghua asked Su Taiping with a serious expression. According to what you said, immortal, only I can pick the pods on this beanstalk. Su Taiping blinked his big eyes and looked at Chu Linghua. With such a clever grandson, Su Jian can rest in peace in the underworld. Su Taiping's words startled Chu Lingwe. She gave a wry smile and then nodded, saying, "That's right. Only the one who planted it can pick the fruits from it." "Then I understand." Su Taiping nodded. "Since this is a trade, what do you plan to exchange with me, immortal?" He asked Chu Lingwe. "If you can take only one of them, I am willing to tell you part of the secret about this bean and a prescription that can help mortals cultivate." Chu Lingwe said very seriously. At this moment, her eyes clearly no longer regarded Taiping as a child. Hearing Chu Lingwe say she had a prescription that could help mortals cultivate, a flash of joy appeared in Su Taiping's eyes. "How can you make me trust you, immortal?" Su Taiping continued to ask calmly, without changing his expression. "I can give you the prescription first. After you try it and find it effective, we can proceed with the transaction." Chu Lingwe said with an open and honest expression. Su Taiping stared intently into Chu Lingwe's eyes for a long moment before finally nodding and saying, "No need to try. I agree to the deal with you, immortal. Aren't you afraid I'm tricking you?" Seeing Su Taiping agree so readily, Chu Lingwe grew a little curious instead. "Grandpa said that after I plant that bean, I'll encounter a stroke of fate. Now it seems my fate must be you, immortal." Su Taiping viplit au set stili. Chu Lingwe was taken aback at first, then covered her mouth with a smile and said, "I didn't expect you, little one, to be so smooth-tongued. You're much better than your grandpa in that regard." "Immortal, are you very familiar with my grandpa?" Su Taiping suddenly asked with curiosity. From Chu Lingwe's words, Su Taiping could vaguely tell that she had indeed communicated with his grandpa before. "I don't have much time to spare here, so let me first tell you about this bean." Chu Lingwe changed the subject. Su Taiping nodded, not dwelling on the previous question. He directly sat down cross-legged on the ground, appearing ready to listen attentively. "The bean your grandfather gave you earlier is also known as the Earth Treasury fruit. It is an extremely mystical spiritual object. If you plant it in an immortal mountain, it will absorb the mountain's spiritual energy and, using that energy as a foundation, nurture unique treasures within its fruit." Fairy Lingwe did not keep him in suspense and explained directly. "Fairy, do you mean that if this seed is planted in different immortal mountains, the fruits it eventually produces will be vastly different?" Su Taiping was astonished and also developed a doubt. "That's right." Fairy Lingwe nodded approvingly. "The spiritual energy contained in each immortal mountain is different, just like you humans, each with 1,000 faces. That is precisely why the Earth Treasury fruit yields different fruits and treasures from different mountains." She explained further in more detail. "This tiny soybean is actually so extraordinary. No wonder Grandpa said it would be a great opportunity." After listening to Lingwe Fairy's detailed explanation, Su Taiping's face was filled with astonishment. His initial guess was that this soybean seed was at most some kind of immortal fruit or treasure, but he never expected it to be a divine object capable of nurturing treasures. "Pick one of the pods and open it." Lingwe Fairy pointed to the 3 pods on the beanstalk. "Okay." Su Taiping did as he was told, plucked a pod from the beanstalk, and carefully pried it open. "Fairy, what is this?" When the pod was opened, Su Taiping saw not beans, but crystal-clear beads emitting a sparkling luster. "These are spirit crystals, the crystallization of spiritual power contained in this land. In the future, when you practice cultivation, you can hold one in your mouth and combine it with the prescription I gave you. Even with mortal bones, you will be able to cultivate quickly," Lingwe Fairy said with great confidence. "Really?" Su Taiping couldn't help blurting out. "Cultivation with mortal bones is not a difficult task in itself. It's just that in the continent where you live, many cultivation traditions have been severed, leading to the situation where mortal bones cannot cultivate." Lingwe Fairy nodded nonchalantly and continued speaking. "Among the treasures born from the Earth Treasury fruit, the spirit crystal is actually the lowest grade. It's just that this land is too barren to produce anything beyond this level of treasure. Even if left to grow longer, it would only improve the grade of the spirit crystal. It could never give birth to a true divine artifact with mystical powers." Hearing this, Su Taiping nodded thoughtfully, then asked, "Then if I plant this seed on the 7 peaks, could it give birth to the kind of divine artifact you mentioned? You grasp things quickly. If I weren't just a remnant soul, I would take you as my disciple." The more Lingwe Fairy looked at Su Taiping, the more she liked him. Su Taiping felt a bit embarrassed by the praise, so he scratched his head awkwardly. However, if you want the Earth Treasury fruit to produce a more powerful treasure, aside from planting the seed on the 7 peaks, where the spiritual energy is richer, you and I still have one more thing to do. Lingwei Fairy spoke again at this point. What is that? Su Taiping quickly asked. Taiping, first pick the remaining 2 pods from the soybean stalk, then open them and hold the contents in your palm. Immortal Maiden Lingwei did not rush to explain. Instead, she pointed at the 2 remaining emerald green pods on the stalk. All right, having chosen to trust Immortal Maiden Lingwei, Su Taiping became very decisive and, without hesitation, plucked the 2 pods and opened them. After opening the 2 pods, Su Taiping found that, just as Immortal Maiden Lingwei had said, inside each pod were spirit crystals that looked like yellow soybeans. Immortal, Su Taiping put away his own few yellow bean spirit crystals, then held out the remaining ones and offered them to the phantom of Immortal Maiden Lingwei. He would not take a single one promised to others, nor give away a single one that belonged to himself. Seeing this, Immortal Maiden Lingwei nodded subtly. She silently praised him again in her heart. Young as he is cautious but not afraid of trouble, and when he acts, he is swift and unrestrained. Truly one of our kind. She did not say this to Su Taiping, however, merely nodding at him before opening her mouth and inhaling toward the several soybean spirit crystals in his hand. With a soft sucking sound, Su Taiping watched as the 7 or 8 soybean spirit crystals in his palm instantly transformed into wisps of purple energy, flowing like rivers converging into the sea, drawn into the mouth of the Lingwei Fairy's phantom. After she inhaled the purple energy formed from the soybean spirit crystals, Su Taiping could clearly see that her figure became much more distinct, no longer swaying like mist in the wind. Thank you, young friend Taiping, for granting me a prolonged life. The Lingwei Fairy did not hold back her words of gratitude. No need for thanks, Fairy, this is merely a transaction between us. Su Taiping appeared unflustered, shaking his head calmly with a composed expression. That is true. The Lingwei Fairy nodded in agreement, then pointed at the beanstalk below and said, Now take a look what changes have occurred in this beanstalk. Upon hearing this, Su Taiping looked down and was quite surprised to find that the bean plant, which had been full of life just moments before, had now completely withered like a wild weed. Fairy, this bean plant has already wilted. How are we supposed to get the seeds? Although Su Taiping was somewhat surprised, he wasn't shocked because he knew that the fairy before him must have a way. Regarding this question, Fairy Lingwei smiled. It is the second task I mentioned earlier that I need you to do. As she continued, Su Taiping immediately assumed an attentive posture, staring at Fairy Lingwei with a very serious expression. Fairy Lingwei didn't keep him in suspense and directly informed Su Taiping. Every time a deet-song fruit plant bears fruit, after all the fruits have been picked, it will wither on its own, and even the next year it will not bear fruit again. If you want it to continue bearing fruit, you must use the rootless fire to burn this withered plant. When it is completely reduced to ashes, its seeds will be born in the ashes. That is why we call this step burning the seeds. Ling Yue's reply undoubtedly astonished Su Taiping once again. However, more than his astonishment, what truly caught his attention was a matter that immortal Ling Yue had mentioned, rootless flame. What is rootless flame, immortal? Su Taiping asked. Immortal Ling Yue seemed to be waiting for his question, so upon hearing it, she revealed a gratified smile once more before explaining. As the name suggests, rootless flame is a type of fire that ignites without relying on external substances. There are 2 kinds of rootless flame, one born from nature, and the other refined by cultivators using true qi and cultivation methods, which we call true fire. Rootless flame born from nature is also called spirit flame. Such divine objects can only be encountered, not sought. Thus, the only rootless flame you can find is the true fire refined by cultivators, and such true fires are often stored within treasure tools and talismans. If she were merely explaining rootless flame, immortal Ling Yue would not have needed to be so detailed. Clearly, her words carried the intention of guiding Su Taiping in his cultivation. Thank you for your guidance, immortal. Upon hearing this, Su Taiping felt greatly benefited and immediately bowed in thanks. So, Fairy, you want me to find a talisman imbued with true fire, is that right? He then asked Ling Yue the fairy to confirm. That's right. Lingwei the fairy smiled and nodded. Although true fire talismans aren't exactly rare items, and for the first ignition of the Earth Treasury fruit, you don't need a true fire of a very high grade. You likely can't afford one at your current stage. So, you can either cultivate enough to conjure your own true fire, or work hard to manage this herbal garden and earn enough merit rewards to exchange for one. There's no rush. Lingwei the fairy suggested to Su Taiping. Rest assured, fairy, I will cultivate diligently and also manage this half-acre garden well, striving to obtain the true fire for ignition as soon as possible. Su Taiping notet Sivio Li. Very good. Lingwei the fairy gave Su Taiping a faint smile. She didn't know why, but facing a boy of just over 10 years old, she felt his resolve was stronger than many adults, much like someone she once knew. Leaning in closer, Lingwei the fairy suddenly crooked her finger at Su Taiping. Is there anything else you need to instruct, fairy? Su Taiping stepped forward, slightly puzzled. Smack! Just then, Fairy Lingwei extended a finger and lightly tapped Su Taiping on the forehead. Before Su Taiping could react, he felt a refreshing coolness penetrate his mind, and then a white paper inscribed with a medicinal recipe and its brewing instructions began to appear in his mind. Marrow cleansing and bone forging decoction? So such a recipe that allows mortals to cultivate really exists in this world. After seeing the effects of the recipe, Su Taiping couldn't help but show a look of joy on his face. Little one, don't get too excited just yet. This marrow cleansing and bone forging decoction recipe was originally meant to be used together with another decoction. But the herbs required for that other recipe are too precious, so even if I gave it to you, it would be useless. Therefore, you will encounter some difficulties during the process of soaking in this marrow cleansing and bone forging decoction. Fairy Lingwei poured a bucket of cold water over Su Taiping's head. What difficulties? Su Taiping immediately asked. Without the other medicinal decoction, when you soak in the marrow cleansing and bone forging decoction, your entire body will experience excruciating pain, akin to being sliced alive and scraped to the bone. Fairy Lingwei said with a grave expression, I'm not afraid of pain. Su Taiping thought seriously, then shook his head firmly. Lingyu wanted to say that he had never tasted that bitterness. Otherwise, he wouldn't have answered so readily. But for some reason, she couldn't bring herself to say it. I'm in a good mood today. Aside from the prescription I promised you, I will give you one more thing. The fairy Lingyu suddenly smiled, then reached out her hand and gently clenched it. In an instant, Su Taiping saw streaks of white light, like ribbons, gathering in Fairy Lingyu's palm. When she opened her hand again, there were 3 translucent, colorful beads in her palm. And the moment these 3 beads took shape, Su Taiping could clearly feel that the figure of Fairy Lingyu before him became much more transparent. Whoosh! Before Su Taiping could ask what they were, Fairy Lingyu suddenly raised her hand and tossed the 3 beads out, flinging them to 3 different spots in the herb garden. After finishing all this, Su Taiping heard Fairy Lingwei begin to softly chant an incantation. At the same time, faint cyan lights converged around the 3 beads into a mysterious runic pattern, enveloping the entire medicinal garden. This is the minor 3 talents spirit gathering array. Though not as potent as a true spirit gathering array, it will suffice to triple the harvest of this half-acre medicinal garden for a year. After completing this, Fairy Lingwei explained to Su Taiping somewhat weakly. Triple? Upon hearing this, Su Taiping first showed a surprised delight, then quickly pulled out the 4 soybean spirit crystals from his pocket and handed them to Fairy Lingwei, saying, Fairy, please accept these 4 crystals. My grandfather always said that fairness is most important in transactions, otherwise they won tea last. Seeing Su Taiping say this in such a serious tone, Fairy Lingwei couldn't help but burst out laughing. However, she immediately composed herself and said seriously, You're right. Since this is a transaction, it should be fair. But you will need these spirit crystals for your upcoming cultivation, so consider this a loan from me. You can repay me when the ground fruit produces treasures next time. Hearing this, Su Taiping also thought carefully for a moment, then nodded and said, When I return it to you next time, I must add interest. I'll need to give you 5 spirit crystals. That's right. Interest must be added. Fairy Lingwei covered her mouth again and let out a soft chuckle. At that moment, her form became even more transparent, and her spiritual energy clearly weakened further. Little Tai Ping, this residual soul of mine is too weak. I need to continue resting and recuperating within the Earth Treasury fruit. It will take at least a month or two before I can come out. From now on, the matters of this spirit garden and your own cultivation must all rely on yourself. Don't let me down. I still need the Earth Treasury fruit to restore my true form. Fairy Lingwei instructed Su Taiping in a slightly joking tone. Rest assured, Fairy, cultivation has always been my own affair. I will never let you down. Su Taiping's gaze was very resolute. Well said. The path of cultivation is indeed each person's own business. On the long road of cultivation, others can help for a while, but not for a lifetime. In the end, one must rely on oneself. The Lingwei fairy smiled with satisfaction, then pointed at the withered beanstalk and said, Taiping, go inside and see if there's a shovel. Dig up this beanstalk, then dig a pit in the center of the herb garden and bury it. All right. Su Taiping nodded and without another word, turned and walked into the house. Just as he turned to go inside, the Lingwei fairy, who had been wearing a gentle smile, suddenly sharpened her gaze. She then turned to look at the courtyard wall behind her. Following her piercing gaze, one could see a pair of faintly glowing blue eyes peeping furtively into the courtyard. The moment the Lingwei fairy turned her head, those eyes clearly noticed her and immediately rolled off the wall. Whoosh! At the same time, the Lingwei fairy's ethereal form suddenly transformed into a gust of wind that howled out of the courtyard, slapping the figure tumbling off the wall and sending it flying. Spare me, great immortal, spare me. I am nothing but a poor ghost slave, forced by the Tiger Lord of Qingfeng Gorge to come and harm people. Before Fairy Lingwei could speak, a corpse ghost with a livid face and rotting body, bones visible, bowed down to her. The saying, playing the jackal to the tiger, refers to scum like you. Fairy Lingwei gave a cold snort, then delivered a slap from afar, sending the corpse ghost flying. At this moment, she was like a completely different person from when she faced Su Taiping. Wait, my strength has not yet recovered, and I may not be a match for that tiger demon. Killing this ghost would instead invite trouble. It's better to cast a confusion curse on it, making it temporarily forget what happened here. Later, when Taiping's cultivation has progressed, let him subdue that tiger demon. It will also be a good training. Just as Fairy Lingwei was about to strike down this ghost in one blow, she suddenly withdrew her hand, muttered a few words softly, and then broke into a happy smile. With a snap, Fairy Lingwei pointed at the ghost's brow, tracing a rune with a milky white glow. As the rune sank into the ghost's brow, the ghost stood up woodenly, then, ignoring Fairy Lingwei before it, turned and walked away, muttering to itself. How did I fall here? Oh well, I'll just go back and report to the king. When I see him, I'll tell him that another little cultivator has come to guard the medicine garden at the green bamboo dwelling. We can wait until the spirit herbs in his garden are ripe, then come back and take his life and all the herbs. The king might even reward me with a piece of fresh liver. How wonderful! By the end, the ghost servant couldn't help shaking his head, clearly very satisfied with his own plan. Though letting the tiger return to the mountain is risky, I still hope that little Taiping will one day understand my good intentions as his teacher. Fairy Lingwei murmured to herself, watching the ghost servant shake his head and leave. Although Su Taiping had not yet formally become her disciple, and she didn't know if he was willing, that didn't stop Fairy Lingwei from imagining herself in the role of a teacher. But she would never admit that the main reason she did this was because she had been too lonely after spending centuries in the Ditsong fruit and wanted to have some fun. The next day, Su Taiping woke up early. He first went to the medicinal garden to clear the weeds, then added a few shovelfuls of soil to the spot where he had buried the Earth Treasury fruit. After all, for him, the Earth Treasury fruit would be a major asset for his future foothold in the cultivation world, and he couldn't let it be stolen. As for Fairy Lingwei, after she returned to the Earth Treasury fruit last night, she had not appeared since. Su Taiping thought she might indeed not come out for at least a month. After clearing the weeds in the medicinal garden, he spent the entire morning tidying up the 3 thatched cottages of Green Bamboo Lodge. The thatched cottages were very simply furnished. A bedroom with just a single bed, a main hall, a kitchen, and a latrine built behind the medicinal garden. While cleaning the kitchen, Su Taiping discovered 2 very interesting items: a water vat that never ran dry no matter how much was scooped out, and a rice vat that would produce a full vat of rice with just 1 merit coin. With water and rice, plus a piece of dried fish hanging on the wall, Su Taiping's first meal at Azure Mystery Sect was thus taken care of. After eating, he made the bed with the bedsheet and quilt from the cabinet, then sat cross-legged on the bed and took out the jade slip and bronze mirror given to him earlier by the West Wind Pavilion. When Fairy Lingua passed me the recipe for the bone-washing marrow cleansing decoction, she tapped my brow, and this jade slip teaching method was also pressed to my brow. This must be the universal way of imparting techniques in the cultivation world. He picked up the jade slip and muttered softly. According to the master of the Western Wind Pavilion, this jade slip contains a qi refining technique of the Qingxian sect, along with many sect rules and instructions on how to use that bronze mirror. Few the stuff transmitted from this jade slip is far more than what Fairy Lingua passed with that single finger tap. Feeling the endless paragraphs of text surging into his mind, Su Taiping was so dizzy that he nearly toppled off the bed. Fortunately, after a while, no new text emerged in his mind, and he finally breathed a sigh of relief. But then he immediately discovered another problem. These words that entered his mind were like bookshelves filled with scrolls. You had to browse them to see and understand the content inside. So the method of transmitting skills via the jade slip was still somewhat different from the one Fairy Lingua taught me. With her finger-pointing method, I learned how to prepare the medicine according to the prescription, but the jade slip just stuffed all that information into my head. Su Taiping carefully sensed the difference between the two. However, it was also possible that the difference in content caused this discrepancy. He immediately added a mental note, then stopped dwelling on it and calmed himself down, reading the lines of text in his mind one by one. 3 days later, after spending almost 3 full days, Su Taiping finally finished reading all the contents of the jade slip. As the master of the West Wind Pavilion had said before, the jade slip contained 3 main items: a remnant cloud scripture, a summary of mystic mirror functions, and the Azure Sect legal code. During this time, he also worked on reading while hoeing the fields of the herb garden. According to the method taught in the jade slip, after hoeing the ground, one could collect some animal manure and dead branches and leaves to burn into soil and fertilize the land. But there's no rush for this step. Today is the first day of the month, the day Elder Zhang gives his lecture on scriptures. He will be speaking on the Sanxia Sutra and the basics for cultivators. It only happens once every 3 months, so I must not miss it. After the lecture, I can take the opportunity to browse the copper mirror for seeds to buy, so that I won't waste that single merit coin. While eating alone in the main room, Su Taiping began planning what he needed to do today, then casually tore a page off the almanac hanging on the wall. The torn page revealed exactly the words "first day of the month," and beside it, a note written in red ink read, "Auspicious for studying, avoid breaking ground." These small characters were part of the same purchase when he summoned a spirit bird yesterday to buy daily necessities. Altogether, it cost him 6 merit coins, which pained him for quite a while. After finishing his meal, he returned to his bedroom. Su Taiping took out the copper mirror from its box and carefully placed it on a rickety table in front of him. At this moment on the table, besides the copper mirror, there was also half a bowl of clear water, a few flower petals, and a single merit coin of the Qingxian sect. Su Taiping recalled how to use the bronze mirror. He dipped his hand in a bowl of water and sprinkled a few drops onto the mirror, then placed a few flower petals and that merit coin on it. Whoosh! Almost the moment he placed the merit coin on the mirror, a gentle breeze suddenly blew out from the mirror, carrying a faint scent of sandalwood. Immediately after, a voice sounded from within the bronze mirror. "Su Taiping, a registered outer disciple of the Qingxian sect, take your seat and do not leave. Elder Zhang will begin his sermon shortly. If you miss it today, you'll have to wait another 3 months." Having fully read the contents of the jade slip, Su Taiping was not startled by the voice, because in that summary of the mystic mirror's functions, it was mentioned that this was the voice of the mirror spirit. According to this summary of the mystic mirror's functions, the mirror spirit was like a guide that could help you find what you wanted to see within the bronze mirror. Of course, except for the forbidden areas of the Qingxian sect, and each time you seek guidance, it costs 1 merit coin. "Thank you, great mirror." Su Taiping expressed his thanks. The spirit of the mystic mirror is not entirely inanimate, so in his view, expressing gratitude was quite necessary. No need for formalities. What Su Taiping didn't expect was that the mirror spirit actually responded to him, even though its tone was extremely cold and rigid. "Mystic mirror, this old man is ready." Just then, a very dignified voice came from within the bronze mirror. Su Taiping immediately looked into the bronze mirror. The surface that had originally reflected Su Taiping's own face suddenly revealed a misty, ethereal peak, and atop that peak, the faint silhouette of an old man with an immortal demeanor could be seen. Taoist Lord Zhang. For this lecture, there are a total of 396 disciples, including 218 newly initiated disciples and 200 with no cultivation base. The mirror spirit's voice rang out again from the bronze mirror. As it spoke, the image in the mirror kept enlarging until Su Taiping could clearly see Taoist Lord Zhang sitting cross-legged on a stone platform. 400 is enough, there's no need to let anyone else in. Taoist Lord Zhang's eyes were slightly closed, and his lips parted gently. "Yes," the mirror spirit responded with a cold tone. "So the Purple Sun Tao Lord's lecture has a limited number of attendees. Good thing I came early today." After hearing the conversation between the Purple Sun Tao Lord and the mirror spirit, Su Taiping secretly felt relieved. Whether this is your first time listening to me lecture on this remnant cloud scripture, or you've heard it many times before, I will treat everyone equally and start from the beginning. After a brief pause, the voice of the Purple Sun Tao Lord sounded again. Knowing that the Purple Sun True Lord had officially begun the lecture, Su Taiping immediately sat up straight, his eyes fixed unblinkingly on the bronze mirror before him. "Among you, many have not practiced cultivation before entering the sect, so before I lecture on this remnant cloud scripture, I will first explain to you what cultivation and cultivation base are. So-called cultivation is nothing more than using body refining techniques to train the physique and using gate opening techniques to refine essence into qi. Our Qingxian sect has always placed more emphasis on gate opening. Only by first nurturing a breath of innate true qi can one cast spells and divine abilities, prolong life and increase longevity, and glimpse the path to ascension, enlightenment, and immortality. And the remnant cloud scripture I will lecture on today is one of the sect's most important gate opening mental cultivation methods. Upon hearing this, Su Taiping silently nodded. These words of Master Zhang were very similar to the opening of the remnant Xia scripture, which was the only part he could understand. As for the subsequent detailed steps of cultivation, they left him utterly confused. Having explained what cultivation is, I will now discuss what cultivation realms are. In simple terms, cultivation realms refer to the different stages of cultivation. In the world of cultivation, based on the length of lifespan and the strength of power one attains, cultivation is generally divided into 5 realms. From weak to strong, the first realm is called the gate opening realm, also known as the sea entering realm. At this stage, the cultivator has just found the path, with abundant blood and energy far surpassing peers, and a lifespan of up to 2 cycles, over 120 years. At this point, Su Taiping's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He hadn't expected that the gate opening realm his grandfather mentioned was merely the lowest realm in the world of cultivation. Beyond surprise, he also felt some relief. If the gate opening realm were the second or third realm, he suspected it would be difficult for him to break through within half a year, and then his forged immortal registration would inevitably be exposed. However, these thoughts only flashed through his mind. He quickly refocused and continued listening to Master Zhang's sermon. The second realm is called the Wanyu realm, granting a lifespan of up to 180 years. Only those who reach this realm can truly be considered cultivators. Over the years, among the disciples I have encountered, at least 6 out of 10 remain stuck in this realm, including some personal disciples of the 7 Peaks. The third realm is called the Tongxian realm. Upon breaking through this realm, one's lifespan can reach up to 360 years, earning the title of True Lord and the right to have one's own Taoist grounds in Mount Yanlu. As for the fourth and fifth realms, you need not consider them now. Do not aim too high. Having said this, the true Lord Dang took a cup of tea from a nearby disciple and sipped it leisurely, as if allowing everyone to contemplate it on their own. So breaking through the Tongxian realm is this difficult. No wonder the true Lord Zhang can be honored as an elder. Su Taiping sighed inwardly at this moment. I wonder what realm Sister Lingyue is in. He suddenly became curious about Lingyue's cultivation level. All right, next, I will explain the Remnant Xia Sutra in detail. Just as Su Taiping's mind began to wander, the voice of the true Lord Zhang from the bronze mirror snapped his attention back. Next, Taoist Lord Zhang began to explain the key points of cultivating the remnant cloud scripture step by step according to the scroll, addressing the gathered disciples. Since Su Taiping had already thoroughly read the remnant cloud scripture beforehand, he didn't find it difficult to follow. In fact, he often showed signs of sudden enlightenment. At the most insightful parts, he couldn't help but wave his hands and feet excitedly, feeling that the various confusions he had encountered earlier were being gradually unraveled by Taoist Lord Zhang. Although he didn't possess a spiritual bone, Su Taiping had always been gifted in reading and understanding since childhood. Thus, in comprehending the cultivation technique, he was not only on par with some disciples who had spiritual bones, but even outperformed many. At this moment, while he found the lecture wonderfully gripping, among the other disciples facing the bronze mirrors, about 8 out of 10 were scratching their heads in great confusion and agony. And all of this was observed by Taoist Lord Zhang. Except for a very few disciples, most including Su Taiping, did not know that before Taoist Lord Zhang also stood a bronze mirror, a huge one. What appeared in that bronze mirror was the image of over 300 disciples listening to the lecture. From Xianjing Bamboo Lodge, who introduced Su Taiping into the Qingxian sect. After finishing the sermon, Zhang Jinjuan suddenly spoke and asked the mirror spirit. Su Taiping was originally a disciple selected by the spirit bone steel and was supposed to be sent to the 7th peak. However, during the spirit bone test, Elder Black Dragon discovered that he was just a skeleton, thus unqualified to enter the 7th peak. Therefore, he was arranged to stay at the foot of the mountain to cultivate on his own, awaiting the 7-peak selection 3 years later. The mirror spirit replied to Zhang Jinjuan, "What a pity." After hearing Xianjing's account, Zhang Jinjuan shook his head helplessly. He could tell that Su Taiping's comprehension of cultivation techniques was extraordinary, so he had entertained the thought of taking him as a disciple. However, he never expected that he was merely a skeleton. A mere skeleton, no matter how well he comprehends techniques, it's useless. Not everyone is Su Chan. Zhang Jinjuan sighed. Jinjuan, you should mention the name Su Chan less often. The sect leader would be displeased if he knew. Xianjing reminded Zhang Jinjuan at this moment. So what if I mention it? Can Zhou Tong really have the final say in Qingxian sect? Upon hearing this, true Lord Zhang snorted coldly, then flicked his sleeves and left. Just as he was about to return to his cave dwelling, he suddenly turned to look at the bronze mirror behind him and said, "Cancel the next scripture lecture. I will go into seclusion for 3 years this time." After saying this, his figure flickered and vanished at the entrance of the cave dwelling. Why must it be so? A helpless sigh came from the bronze mirror, turning back to the green bamboo dwelling. Huff, still no good. Su Taiping, who had been sitting on the bed practicing for a long time, suddenly let out a long sigh. After listening to true Lord Zhang's scripture lecture, the time had just reached noon, which was the perfect hour to practice the remnant sunset scripture. Su Taiping began to cultivate according to the insights he had gained that day. Unexpectedly, after a full hour of effort, he still could not channel the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into his body and refine it into true qi as described in the remnant sunset scripture. It seems I'll have to rely on Fairy Ling Yue's prescription. Su Taiping wiped the sweat from his brow and said somewhat unwillingly. This attempt made him truly realize the difficulty of cultivating with a white bone aptitude. Thinking of this, he had already made up his mind. He took out the bronze mirror again and then placed a merit coin on it. Su Taiping of the Green Bamboo Residence, what brings you to seek me? The voice of the mirror spirit echoed from the bronze mirror. Lord Xianjing, I wish to procure a batch of medicinal herbs and seeds. Su Taiping deeply, given your current rank, you may only purchase herbs and seeds at the herb hall at the foot of the mountain. Here is the catalog of herbs from the herb hall. After you make your selections in the mirror, spirit birds will deliver them to your courtyard. As the mirror spirit spoke, a catalog of herbs began to appear on the bronze mirror. Thank you, great mirror. Su Taiping thanked him and started scrutinizing the list carefully. After the time it takes an incense stick to burn, Su Taiping managed to gather all the herbs on Fairy Ling Yue's prescription. To avoid revealing the formula, he added a few inexpensive herbs and tampered with the weights. As for the seeds for the herb garden, he only selected 9-leaf purple perilla, purchasing enough to plant 3 acres 3 times over. He had his reasons for this choice. According to the records in that skill-transmitting jade slip about herb garden cultivation, the leaves, stems, and fruits of the 9-leaf perilla can all be used as medicine. The leaves can be consumed as a premium vegetable, and the seeds are the cheapest among all spiritual herbs. It is easy to grow, with a cycle from germination to fruiting of only 3 months. Cloud Summit Mountain enjoys spring like weather all year round, allowing for 3 harvests annually. The only drawback is that it sells for too low a price. Under normal circumstances, each moo of 9-leaf perilla yields only 30 merit coins for Azure Mystery Sect annually, far lower than the returns of other spiritual herbs. It must be noted that in Azure Mystery Sect, each outer disciple apprentice must pay 120 merit coins per year. Even if Taiping plants all 3 moo of herb fields with 9-leaf perilla, under normal conditions, he still cannot gather enough merit coins to submit to the sect. But with the formation that Fairy Spirit Moon set up in the herb fields, everything changes. According to Fairy Spirit Moon, the herb fields with that small spirit gathering formation will triple their yields for the next 3 years. So growing 9-leaf perilla would be the most profitable choice for him. Barring any accidents, planting 9-leaf basil on 3 moo of land for 3 seasons would allow me to exchange at least 270 merit coins. After deducting the cost of 20 merit coins and the annual tribute of 120 merit coins, I would still have 130 merit coins left. By next year, I'll be able to buy better seeds and maybe even save some to purchase cultivation techniques and talismans. After paying the bronze mirror, Su Taiping picked up a pen and paper, carefully keeping track of his accounts. After buying the herbs and seeds, I only have 3 merit coins left. Fortunately, the rice jar is already full, and there's plenty of oil and salt. I'll set some traps in the mountains to hunt game, which should sustain me until the first batch of 9-leaf basil matures. He calculated in his mind as he kept the accounts. Choosing 9-leaf basil as the seed had a major advantage: it matured quickly, allowing him to exchange it for merits within 3 months, which he could then use to acquire the herbs needed for cultivation. As for the true fire talisman required for seed burning, he had asked the mirror spirit about it yesterday. The reply was that he would have to wait a year after joining before he could purchase items like talismans, and even the cheapest true fire talisman cost over 1,000 merit coins. He simply couldn't afford it anytime soon. Well, after the harvest, I'll also need to consider saving up to buy a true fire talisman. Su Taiping made another note in his ledger. The next evening, a spirit crane carrying a large package landed in front of Su Taiping's small courtyard. The seeds and medicinal herbs Su Taiping had ordered had finally all arrived. After somewhat painfully paying 1 merit coin to the crane, Su Taiping carried the herbs into his bedroom. At that moment, a bathtub filled with hot water was placed in his bedroom. This was precisely what he had prepared in advance for soaking the medicine. The prescription given by Fairy Linguist stated that the ingredients of this batch of medicinal herbs were ordinary to bring out their efficacy. One had to add them according to the time and sequence specified in the prescription. After sorting the herbs and re-weighing them with the old steelyard scale in the room, Su Taiping stood before the bathtub and silently reviewed the sequence and timing for adding the herbs. It should be fine. After a moment, Su Taiping nodded to himself, as if encouraging himself. He then picked up a portion of medicinal herbs laid out on oil paper and dumped them all into the steaming bathtub, then began counting on his fingers in a low voice. 876. When he reached 1, Su Taiping swiftly poured the second portion of medicinal herbs into the bathtub. With the addition of the second portion, the hot water in the tub suddenly began to bubble, followed by a fragrance like orchids and musk spreading through the air. Looks like I didn't make a mistake. Su Taiping's face lit up with joy, and he promptly poured in another packet of herbs. Half an hour later, after all the medicinal herbs had been added to the bathtub according to the prescription, Su Taiping saw that the originally clear hot water had now turned into a thick, white liquid. The medicinal soup was as white as jade and as thick as paste, just as the prescription described. Su Taiping breathed a sigh of relief. At least from appearance alone, the bone-washing and marrow-cleansing soup he had prepared seemed successful. Then Su Taiping quickly stripped off his clothes, revealing his lean body, and flipped over nakedly into the soup. TSK, TSK. Perhaps because of the potency of the medicine. Even after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the herbal decoction in the tub was still scalding hot. Su Taiping couldn't help but grimace from the heat. If not for the prescription note stating that leaving midway would greatly reduce the efficacy, he would have likely jumped out of the tub by now. After soaking in the medicinal soup, one must use breathing techniques to activate the medicine's power. Having adapted to the temperature of the decoction, Su Taiping began to breathe according to the method taught by the Renminxia Sutra. Before long, he felt a burning sensation in his lower abdomen at the dantian. The steps of breathing and exhaling were all taught by true Lord Zhang during his lectures. Over the past few days, Su Taiping had tried many times. Although he had never been able to refine spiritual energy into his body, he had memorized the steps thoroughly. Just as Su Taiping was wondering why the medicine's effect hadn't started yet, a piercing pain suddenly struck him in the back of his heart, as if a nail was being hammered into him bit by bit. If this kind of pain, it seems it can still, Su Taiping was about to say that he could endure it, but unexpectedly, an identical pain struck in his chest, rendering him completely speechless. Even more horrifying, this was just the beginning. After the pain emerged in those two spots, a dense, relentless pain began erupting from every acupoint in his body, giving him no chance to catch his breath. Normally, such pain would cause a person to faint, but for some reason, Su Taiping, immersed in the medicinal bath, could not pass out no matter how intense the pain became. He could only endure it. The pain lasted for a full 2 hours. In the middle, countless times Su Taiping wanted to climb out of the tub. Every time the thought arose, the image of his grandfather on his deathbed would flash in his mind, his grandfather staring wide-eyed at him and saying, "Win some honor, Taiping. You must win honor for yourself and for all the ordinary bones under heaven." Huff, huff. Panting heavily, Su Taiping leaned against the tub in exhaustion. After his breath steadied, he slightly curled the corner of his mouth and murmured proudly, "Grandfather, your grandson didn't let you down, did he?" But although the excruciating pain was gone, the minor aches remained. His body now felt as if it were covered in countless cracks. Even the slightest movement would tear open these wounds, causing piercing pain. The treatment followed a 7-day cycle. He still had to soak in the marrow cleansing decoction 6 more times, with no breaks in between, or all previous efforts would be wasted. The thought of enduring 6 more rounds of such agony made even him, with his steadfast will, begin to doubt whether he could ultimately persevere. 6 days later, it was the last time. Staring at the steaming medicinal bath before him, Su Taiping suddenly felt as if he had been reborn into another world. The past 6 days felt even longer than the 10 years he had lived through. After soaking in the marrow cleansing decoction for 6 consecutive days, both his mind and body had reached their limits. On the first day, he hadn't even let out a groan. He certainly never imagined that in the following days he would be screaming in pain, crying bitterly, and constantly calling out for his father, mother, and grandfather. Su Taiping had never imagined he could be so fragile. This clearly shows how intense the pain from the bone-washing and marrow-cleansing soup was. Yet even so, even crying and screaming, Su Taiping finally managed to endure until the 7th day. Not only that, but during these 7 days, he even turned over all 3 mu of medicinal fields and planted all the seeds of 9-leaf white perilla. Prove yourself, Su Taiping. You have to prove yourself. Standing hesitantly in front of the bathtub for a long time, Su Taiping kept exhorting himself. At this moment, his face was pale without a trace of color, and his body was as thin as a stick. In just 6 days, he had lost at least 10 gene. He was on the verge of collapse. Plop. Finally, Su Taiping stepped into the bathtub, and his body was quickly swallowed by the white paste. Ugh, although he wanted to endure it, the intense pain still made him scream. If not for the fact that there was no one within 100 miles, it would have surely attracted onlookers. Of course, the screams were not completely unheard by anyone. For example, at this moment, Fairy Spirit Moon, who had turned into a wisp of blue smoke, was drifting outside Su Taiping's window. "This is the last day, little Taiping. Hold on. Whether you step onto the path to the heavens from now on, or drift aimlessly like a floating duckweed through the rest of your life, all depends on a single thought of yours." Listening to the pained moans from the room, Immortal Lingyue couldn't help muttering to herself at last. You make it sound so easy. The pain of marrow cleansing increases day by day. By the seventh day, it is exactly 7 times that of the first. Without another prescription, who could endure? But as soon as she said that, she gave a bitter smile and mocked herself, while also feeling guilty for so rashly giving that prescription to Su Taiping. An hour later, he actually managed to pull through. When she saw strands of pure, celestial energy pouring into the small courtyard like a tidal wave, immortal Lingyue showed an expression of disbelief. This was precisely the sign of successful marrow cleansing. She, who had not dared to look into the room before, couldn't help peering through the crack in the window at this moment. In the bedroom, the unconscious Su Taiping was half lying in a bathtub. The medicinal liquid he was soaking in had long since turned from jade white to pitch black, stained by the filth constantly seeping out of his body. At the same time, the streams of worldly spiritual energy visible only to Fairy Lingyue kept brushing over Su Taiping's body like a gentle hand, then drilling into him. Fairy Lingyue glanced at Su Taiping in the room, then at the newly trimmed herb garden at the back of the yard, and a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Originally, I thought time was running out and I'd take a gamble, but now it seems I didn't misjudge. With that, her figure dissipated on the spot, leaving only her words echoing faintly in the small courtyard. Little one, I need to focus on refining the spirit crystals to extend my life for a few more years. See you another time. The next morning, when the first ray of morning sunlight streamed through the window, Su Taiping, still soaking in the bathtub, just opened his eyes. He had slept the most peaceful sleep of his life. Did I succeed? Upon noticing the black, foul-smelling liquid in the bathtub, Su Taiping was not frightened, but instead showed a delighted expression. Because according to the description of the bone-washing and marrow-cleansing soup, this was precisely the sign of successful marrow cleansing, representing that the impurities within the cultivator's body had been expelled, and he truly possessed the qualifications for cultivation. Splash! In his excitement, Su Taiping stood up from the bathtub and, without dressing, ran stark naked to the well in the backyard. He first drew a bucket of water to wash off the filth from his body, then sat down cross-legged on the spot and immediately activated the qi refining technique of the remnant cloud art. For the moment he began circulating the breathing technique of the remnant cloud art, a gentle breeze was drawn into the small courtyard, and strands of heavenly spiritual energy entered his body through his already opened acupoints. The meridians and acupoints that Su Taiping had previously been unable to sense no matter how hard he tried were now easily detected, and even the process of guiding spiritual energy into the meridians for refinement went very smoothly. In the end, Su Taiping took the time of half an incense stick to successfully deliver a strand of refined true qi into his dantian. Refining just this one strand of true qi in half an incense stick time compared to the geniuses in Zhang Jinjuan's tales, it's hardly worth mentioning, but to me, it finally means I can truly step onto the path of cultivation. Su Taiping wasn't too discouraged by his painfully slow refining speed. Grandpa always said that diligence can compensate for clumsiness. If they practice 2 hours a day, I'll practice 4. If they practice 4, I'll practice 8. One day, I'll catch up. Su Taiping silently made up his mind. Right, I still have the soybean spirit crystals. Fairy Lingyue said that holding them while cultivating can yield twice the result with half the effort. He suddenly remembered the few soybean spirit crystals that had formed inside the underground fruit. So he took one out and immediately began to circulate his energy again. With the help of the soybean spirit crystal, his speed of refining vital energy from heaven and earth increased by more than 3 times. Fairy Lingyue didn't deceive me. This spirit crystal is truly beneficial to me. With this, I might actually be able to break through to the open gate realm within half a year. Feeling the improvement in his cultivation speed, Su Taiping's face lit up with joy. With the aid of the soybean spirit crystal, his current training speed was at least on par with an ordinary cultivator. In the days that followed, aside from spending 2 hours each day tending to the herb field, Su Taiping devoted the rest of his time to cultivation, not daring to waste a single moment. Time flew by, and 3 months had already passed. During these 3 months, Su Taiping could clearly feel that the true qi in his dantian was becoming increasingly abundant. He vaguely sensed that he should be on the verge of breaking through the dew condensation stage. The so-called dew condensation stage is actually a term from the remnant glow art, describing the depth of true chi for cultivators who have yet to break through the door-opening realm. In the remnant glow art, before breaking through the door-opening realm, the depth of a cultivator's true chi is divided into 3 levels: dew condensation, frost formation, and ice solidification. Only when the depth of true chi has broken through the ice solidification stage can a cultivator attempt to break through the door-opening realm. However, after breaking through the dew condensation stage and entering the frost formation stage, when a cultivator practices the remnant glow art, a layer of protective ice true chi will form around their body, equivalent to wearing a top-grade fine iron armor. Yet, even before breaking through the dew condensation stage, as the true chi in his dantian became more abundant, the changes in Su Taiping's body were still quite noticeable. For example, his eyesight and hearing had improved significantly compared to 3 months ago. In terms of eyesight, he could now clearly see a sparrow perched on a tree 500 meters away. As for his hearing, he could identify by ear alone what kinds of wild beasts were in the forest within a 1 li radius. Additionally, his physical strength and running speed had greatly improved. Although Su Taiping now looked thin and weak, he could easily lift a 200-gene stone mill with one hand. As for his running speed, he had once chased a wild deer in the nearby forest and kept pace without falling behind. Moreover, when he was in Qingyo village, he often went into the mountains with his grandfather to hunt game, and he knew how to use a bow, an arrow, and set traps. That was why, over the past month, he had been able to eat wild game every day. Roasted venison and rabbit meat with perilla leaves no matter how many times he ate them. He never got tired. Speaking of which, it was time to check the trap he had set in the back mountain a few days ago. Maybe he could catch another gazelle to eat. At noon that day, Su Taiping, who had been cultivating for 3 shurchen 6 hours, patted his stomach and stood up from the bed, planning to go check the traps he had set in the back mountain. Since he had little time to hunt due to his cultivation, he had set up quite a few traps on the nearby mountains over the past 3 months. Now all he had to do was check them from time to time to get some spoils. But before that, there was something more important he had to do: sell the herbs. 3 months had passed since he sowed the first batch of 9-leaf white perilla seeds. Su Taiping had harvested over 300 caddies of perilla roots and more than 60 caddies of perilla seeds, exactly 3 times the yield of an ordinary medicinal field. Calculated by weight, this patch of 9-leaf white perilla could sell for at least 96 merit coins, already surpassing the expected amount by 3-fold. After placing all the herbs to be sold to the door, Su Taiping took out the bone flute given by the West Wind Pavilion and blew into it with all his might. Squawk! Before long, a white-headed eagle with a wingspan of a full zhang landed at the entrance of the small yard. "Uncle White Eagle, please deliver these herbs to the 100 Herbs Hall for sale. Afterwards, you may take 3 merit coins as your commission." Su Taiping clasped his hands in a bow to the white-headed eagle standing before him. Having the spirit bird sell the medicinal herbs was also a method he had learned from that cultivation jade slip. It said that ordinary herbs could be directly taken by the spirit bird to sell, saving time and effort, but afterward, he would have to pay 3 merit coins. "I will deliver the money tomorrow." The white-headed eagle spirit bird did not waste words, nodded slightly, then grabbed the batch of medicinal herbs with its claws and soared into the air. "By tomorrow, I will have money to buy cultivation techniques and martial arts from the pavilion of 10,000 volumes. Watching the retreating figure of the white-headed eagle, Su Taiping intertwined his fingers and stretched with a big yawn. Although he still needed to save money to buy a true fire talisman, it was necessary to purchase a martial art for self-defense. Earlier, while hunting in the mountains, he had nearly been injured by a few wild boars. Currently, he had a dantian full of true chi, but had no idea how to use it. In fact, for a cultivator, it would be better to buy a spell to practice, but unfortunately, his pockets were empty and he simply couldn't afford it. He could only wait until he saved more money. Moreover, before breaking through to the open door realm, even if he had practiced the residual sunset art, the amount of true chi in Su Taiping's body would not be enough to support him in casting spells. This bow and hunting knife also need to be replaced. At this moment, Su Taiping had retrieved the bow and arrows and the hunting knife from the cabin, ready to head to the back mountain. These bow and arrows and hunting knife were left by the previous owner of the green bamboo dwelling. The blade of the hunting knife was full of notches, and the bowstring had snapped once Su Taiping had barely managed to reattach it. Living alone on the mountain with many wild beasts around the yard, he still needed these basic self-defense weapons. Half an incense stick later, the back mountain. Although Su Taiping called this place the back mountain, according to the map in the Jade Slip, this mountain should be called Yanglu Mountain, named for the abundance of yellow sheep and elk. However, during his recent trips into the mountain, Su Taiping had found that yellow sheep and elk were not actually plentiful. Instead, there were many groups of wild boars. If he could hunt a wild boar, that would be good. At least he wouldn't have to worry about food for the next half month. Running through the mountain, Su Taiping carefully scanned his surroundings while muttering to himself. Although cultivators could practice Anidia, the prerequisite was at least breaking through the opening gate realm. Currently, Su Taiping not only could not abstain from food, but also had to rely on large amounts of meat to replenish the physical strength consumed during training. Bah! Just as Su Taiping was about to approach the trap, he suddenly heard a sheep's bleat. Could it be that he had actually caught a gazelle? Su Taiping's heart immediately filled with joy. The taste of roasted gazelle meat was far better than wild boar, especially when paired with the perilla leaves from his family's herb garden. It seemed he was in for a treat tonight. Thinking this, he quickly sprinted to the trap. Upon arriving at the trap, Su Taiping saw that the branches covering it had disappeared, making him even more certain that there was prey inside. Grr! Just as Su Taiping was about to lean in and see if the prey in the trap was indeed a gazelle, a low growl of a beast suddenly sounded from behind him. Thump! Almost by instinct, Su Taiping leaped from his spot, relying on his leg strength to jump across to the opposite side of the trap. Roar! The moment Su Taiping landed on the opposite side of the trap, a gray wolf, as large as an ordinary tiger, pounced on the spot where he had been standing. A small tree as thick as a bull's mouth was snapped directly by its impact. A wolf, or rather a demon wolf. Gazing at the enormous gray wolf before him, Su Taiping felt every hair on his body stand on end. Hunting with his grandfather, he had seen wolves more than once, but compared to the one in front of him, those were mere child's play, utterly insignificant. How? Just as Su Taiping was frozen in shock, the gray wolf leaped once again, lunging toward him from across the trap. Bang! Su Taiping rolled to the side, narrowly dodging the wolf's pounce, then yanked the hunting knife from his waist and sprinted frantically toward the eastern part of the forest. Roar! Though he was now running far faster than an average adult, he still couldn't outpace the demon wolf before him in just a few breaths. It had caught up. By now, however, Su Taiping had calmed down. Instead of panicking at the wolf's pursuit, he nimbly twisted and turned through the forest, running in a zigzag pattern. This was something his grandfather had taught him. When encountering a wild beast in the mountains, never run in a straight line, always circle and take detours to evade them. Bang! Just then, the demon wolf, turning too sharply, accidentally crashed into a tree as thick as a man's arm span, snapping it cleanly. Su Taiping caught this sight from the corner of his eye, immediately stopped, and decisively knocked an arrow and drew his bow. He didn't aim for the demon wolf's head, but for its lungs. Whoosh! Just as the demon wolf staggered back to its feet, Su Taiping pulled the bowstring to its full and decisively released the arrow. Thud! Whether by luck or because his eyesight and arm strength had greatly improved after cultivation, Su Taiping's arrow precisely struck the demon wolf's body. Roar! But to Su Taiping's surprise, the demon wolf's hide was incredibly tough. The arrow only pierced the skin, far from proving fatal. It only made the wolf more frenzied. Seeing this, Su Taiping didn't hesitate. He grabbed his bow and arrows and sprinted once more toward the eastern part of the forest. This time, the enraged demon wolf paid no heed to any trees in its path, charging straight through them all. As a result, the distance between Su Taiping and the demon wolf rapidly closed. Come on! But just as Su Taiping, less than 3 zhang away from the demon wolf, reached a large tree hung with cloth strips, he suddenly stopped, drew the hunting knife from his waist, turned around, and roared at the demon wolf, striking a posture of a life or death struggle.